CG animation is very difficult and very expensive to do, and I just wanted to tell a story that was a love story that had nothing to do about the fact that they were gay. Growing up, art was never a real career. I could never imagine that I could do that and actually live off it. Don't underestimate pre-production. Like, get a good storyboard, get your keyframes right, and the rest will come.
What was the biggest hurdle that you have faced becoming an animator? And explain the process of writing that screenplay. How did you begin to get gigs and projects when you're first starting out? What software were you using to create your film? What is your favorite thing about your job? What are some of the biggest mistakes that you notice beginners make? Artists don't want to sell out. And then they complain that they're starving, right?
That's part of the reason why I didn't think that I could be an animator.
Welcome to Mad Artist Publishing, the place to be for short films, VFX, and animated shorts, and interviews with directors and animators that create them.
What's good, everybody? Welcome to Mad Artist Publishing. I'm your host, Marcel Migdo, and today we have another special interview with another filmmaker. Today we are chatting with Alex Tagali about their award-winning 2D animated short film, Star Fallen, that we have featured on our channel. Star Fallen is an animated love story about two boys who meet under the stars and their lives become intertwined. So this short has taken the internet sort of by storm, and it was animated and directed by digital artist and animator Alex Tagali with music by Uri Avi. So welcome, Alex, and congratulations on the film.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be talking to people about animation because I love it.
That's definitely good. So why did you choose to tell this story?
I'm just tired of not seeing enough representation in media, and then when you get stories that are about queer people, they're usually either about how difficult it is to be queer or they're coming out stories. Like, the stories are about them being gay or trans, and I just wanted to tell a story that was a love story that had nothing to do about the fact that they were gay.
So before we actually dive into the film itself, I would like to get to know you and how you actually got involved in the animation industry. So could you tell us about yourself? Were you always an artist growing up?
I started drawing when I was really, really young. My mom loved to, we would sit around and draw with crayons for hours. I started drawing Pokemon when I was 5. I was obsessed. Pokemon was like the first time I started copying drawings and wanting to actually draw things. besides the little house with the family and the dad and the mom. So yeah, I have been drawing all my life.
How did you get involved in the art of animation?
Actually took me a little while to get into it because growing up, art was never a real career. I could never imagine that I could do that and actually live off it. So I started studying architecture because that was a real job people have. And then, like 2, 3 years through my studies, I realized that I'm miserable. I don't want to be doing this. I want to be telling stories. I want to be drawing. So I dropped out and then I got a job in a graphic design studio and then I went to study animation.
How many years into your architectural schooling were you?
Like 2.5 years.
And you were born and raised in Athens, Greece. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Have you been to North America?
No, I haven't been to North America. I mean, that's part of the reason why I didn't think that I could be an animator, because Greece has a very small animation scene. There's certainly like no traditional 2D animation. Right. Any work that I've been doing online with people abroad.
Right. Well, that's sort of the way things have been progressing, though, especially in the artist industry. I myself also am an animator. That's what I went to school for. And I also did graphic design. That was my major. So I totally identify with what you said. And I also wanted to be an architect, funny enough. I didn't have the chops for the math.
Yeah, I loved math. That's what kind of sent me in that direction.
Oh, really? Okay. What was the biggest hurdle that you have faced becoming an animator?
It's the fact that I'm in Greece. I love Greece. I really enjoy being in Greece, but it's becoming more and more apparent to me that if I want to be involved in bigger projects, then I am going to have to move. Like, I'm considering perhaps moving to London, but I think that's the biggest challenge I've been facing right now.
How did you begin to get, I suppose, gigs and projects when you're first starting out?
I drew things I loved, and then sometimes the creators of those things approached me and said, hey, I saw that you drew fan art of this and I like your art, and would you be interested in, I don't know, illustrating my next book cover? Or I like that piece of art you did for that. Could you do something similar for my merchandise? So it was very much social media.
Would you call yourself an animator or more of a digital artist?
My biggest love is animation, but I've done more work in digital art so far.
For anybody who doesn't understand what traditional animation really entails, can you take us for what a day-to-day consists of?
So traditional animation, I don't mean drawing on actual paper. I mean paperless traditional animation. Basically, if you want to make a character do this movement, you need to draw the character in multiple poses. So the first thing I will do is say, okay, I want the character to start from here. I will, with their arm raised. And I want at the end of the scene, the arm to be on their shoulder down here. So then I'll draw that pose. And then you slowly go in and you fill in the in-between poses. So you draw the hand in the middle of the movement. You then fill in the gaps between the first and the middle one. And you go on and you draw each pose separately until 12 poses turn into 1 second of movement.
So you're doing 12 frames per second, essentially.
Yes, I'm not,
You don't have the time to do all 30.
I'm not completely crazy.
What would you say is the reason people are taking the old school Disney classics? They were traditionally hand-drawn and now they're turning them into a CG.
CG animation is very difficult and very expensive to do. I think it's more a matter of when you're working in CG, you can play around with cameras more, with special effects, with dynamic movement, things that you can't play with when doing traditional animation. Because if you want to move a camera in traditional animation, if you want to have the room moving, then you have to draw all the background, like every frame. Like it's not practical. Right. And I think especially children who are, for better or for worse, the biggest market out there for animation, especially for big companies like Disney, children feel much more engaged by flashy visuals and moving cameras and things that look real.
Do you have any animators that you admire?
Kind of a, not an unusual answer, but Rebecca Sugar. Like, not necessarily as an animator, but as a storyteller. Like, Steven Universe was such a huge inspiration for me. Rebecca Sugar's characters, the world, everything about it is just, I'm in love. I wish I could be like that one day.
I'm not familiar with Rebecca. What things has she done that people would know her for?
Steven Universe is like a really famous Cartoon Network show. about aliens called crystal gems and a little young boy who's like half human, half gem, and has superpowers because of it. It's just really cute and lovely.
What is your favorite thing about your job when you're actually animating, and what is your favorite thing when you're doing your illustrations or your digital art? Well, a lot of people
I enjoy the process.
For me personally, I left the animation because it was too tedious to see 5 seconds of work, right? It would take
Yeah, I understand that. I don't know. I find it oddly relaxing. Like the keyframes take a lot of effort, but once you have those down and you're just doing in betweens, I'll just pop on a podcast, I'll make some tea, and then I can just sit and draw. My mind is blank. And I can just listen to music I like, listen to audiobooks, listen to podcasts. I find it really relaxing.
So you just want to zen out when you're working, which is the ultimate way to work, really.
You know, if I'm in the mood to do something more engaging, then I'll work on the storyboards or the keyframes that take more like brain power.
When you're watching other people's work, what makes something stand out to you?
Okay, there's 4 things that are the most important things to me. First of all, characters. Like it needs to have characters that are interesting and complex and whom I love. The second one is the storytelling element. Like I would like it to have a clear narrative, a narrative that's not, you know, boring and predictable. So characters and narrative, they're not just linked to animation. They're in movies, they're in books, they're in all sorts of media. So without those two, if you don't have interesting characters, interesting narrative, then the movie to me is not going to be very interesting. But then moving on to animation specifically, for me, the aesthetic of it, the art style is also important. I enjoy watching things that are beautiful. I enjoy watching things that have a nice art style, that are beautifully lit. The last one is a good soundtrack, like good music. It elevates it for me.
What are some of your favorite films? I'm leaning to Spider-Verse.
Yes, I was about to say that. Into the Spider-Verse. It was amazing. It ticked all of those boxes. Awesome characters, good narrative, very good soundtrack, and the art style, so pretty.
What makes you different is what makes you Spider-Man.
Sony's doing a couple of different projects in that style because it hasn't been done before.
Can't wait to see them. Like, I'm so excited for it. I recently watched Klaus, and it was gorgeous, amazing. It's like the origin story of Santa Claus. Again, the character is charming, the art style incredible. It looks 3D, but it's 2D. Well, it's a mix.
Okay.
But it's an amazing film.
Let's go!
Wait, time out, really? That's how you laugh?
I mean, I know it's not a recent film, but Spirited Away will always hold a very special place in my heart.
This fall, prepare to be spirited away.
One thing that I will give you props for is coming on to here. I find too many artists, myself including, back in the day, you know, we're so behind our drawing board, our canvas, our screen, that we don't want to go and speak about the work because we're shy or whatever, or we don't want to sell out. More importantly, artists don't want to sell out, and then they complain that they're starving, right?
Thank you. No, I can't say this is the first time I'm doing something like this, but I enjoy it. I mean, I want to draw art and I want to tell stories because I want to connect with people.
So now we're going to talk about Starfallen, the film itself. So your storytelling especially is top notch. So you managed to evoke so many different emotions in under 2 minutes. You got friendship, you've got romance, love, tragedy, sadness, and then at the very end in the credits you got your happiness as well. So can you explain where you got your inspiration for the film and explain the process of writing that screenplay?
I don't really have a sort of cut out process. I get my ideas usually either at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep and I just like jot them down in the dark, or while walking with music, or while driving. Those are like my 3 inspiration moments. Starfallen I got while walking. I was listening to some like cute piano music, and I started picturing this scene and this lifetime and these stars, and I knew that I had to write it. I had to tell this story, but it was just a daydream. It started from a daydream. I didn't really have a set process. I had the daydream, and then I drew the characters, because they were the most important thing to me. I just started doodling them.
Did you base them on anybody that you knew?
The ginger boy was actually based on my D&D character. So, nerd, yes. Yeah, they were based on D&D characters.
Okay.
I thought, okay, actually, I could see this working. I could see this being animated. And then I started trying to get the aesthetic of, okay, what does the space they're in look like? I did some storyboards. And like the actual script, I wrote that after the storyboard, at like the end.
How did you get people to cry, basically, and feel all these emotions about your film, right? Like, were you cognizant when you're writing
It wasn't
this?
a conscious choice. It was just, it came to me in my head the way it was, and it made me emotional. And I thought, well, if it gets me emotional, surely there's other people who would feel the same.
When you screen it for your family and friends, you mentioned most of the reactions were positive.
I mean, I think I made my mom cry in the best way. But no, they really loved it. They loved the storytelling. Like, there was definitely a comment onto like, but why does it have to be two boys? But it wasn't like anything, hateful. It was more of an honest question, like, why did you choose to tell this story?
Was this a personal project or was this commissioned?
It was my graduation film.
Oh, this is a grad film. I didn't know it was a grad film.
This was my graduation film.
Which school did you go to?
I went to a school called Acto Art and Design. It's just a school in Greece.
Okay.
But yeah, I got the idea for this animation like 2 years before I got to make it. I have had it sitting in my head for 2 years, and then we had to make a short film. And I thought, well, now I have to make this.
What software were you using to create your film?
A bunch of different software. For the main animation, I used TV Paint. It's very easy to use. It's very intuitive. It doesn't necessarily offer that many tools, but I didn't really need that many tools at the time. So I used TV Paint for the animation, and then I used Photoshop for like the lighting, the atmosphere, the backgrounds, and then I used After Effects for special effects like the rain. So those are the three main ones. I think if I'd known back then, I would have used Harmony, because that's the one that most studios use. It's the most widely used in the industry. But I didn't know that at the time, so I learned TV Paint instead, which is still a good software, but yeah.
How long did the film take to make, and what was the most difficult part of making it technically?
It's difficult to say exactly how long it took. I made it over the space of 6 months, but there was a lot of on and off. Like, sometimes I had other projects, sometimes I didn't work for it for some days. The actual animation process, getting the animation down and drawing all the in-betweens took about 2 months. It took a lot of pre-production, like deciding on the characters, the art style, right, what scenes to include, what not to include.
And you knew that you wanted to make this a 2D film? Nobody tried to convince you to make it a 3D? Or
I knew from the start that I wanted it to be 2D, and nobody tried to convince me to do it 3D. They knew that that's what my heart was in.
Right.
But that was also part of the biggest difficulty I faced, because there was only one of me, and it was hundreds and hundreds of frames. So drawing each frame after the other, like, it was exhausting. Like, it got to a point where I was like, oh God, I'm seeing keyframes in my sleep. I think that part of the process, the like tedious, and I usually don't find it tedious, but for something that long, it was.
Did you learn anything from that process that could make you more efficient in the future if you were to do this again?
Be a part of a team. Get help. Don't do everything alone. I mean, I did have help with the backgrounds, but I think doing animation alone is very difficult. You're very limited in what kind of story you can tell and the length of the story you can tell. So in the future, if I want to do projects like that, I'm going to see if I can get people to even help out with in-betweens or things like that.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, everybody has to put in the time.
Yeah.
Right. Once you get that,
of course.
Once you get that,
confirmation that you did a good job, then other people start flocking to you, right? That's always the case.
If you have to be working alone, then don't underestimate pre-production. Like, get a good storyboard, get your keyframes right, and the rest will come. If you do a good storyboard and you have like a solid script, then the rest is like, it will flow. It will come.
In my post-grad, I did CG film. and I decided that I wanted 2 characters, particle effects, and all this, like a two.
I did like a Tomb
Render
Raider type.
time.
In the end, I mean, I pulled it off, but I wasn't too happy with everything. And the funny thing is, my instructor said, no, just do 1 character.
This game has not yet been rated.
Yeah, oh, I feel you. I did CG animation too before that, and I found that so exhausting.
On Mad Artist Publishing, there are only a handful of LGBTQ films. And I feel that's probably because there's just not a lot of independent people out there like you who are making content like this. Why do you think that's the case?
I think it's usually a case of there is content and there are creators, but they don't get seen because it's more difficult to get seen if you don't belong to a majority.
Stereotype.
There's an element of fear, because it's something personal. There's going to be some backlash. I mean, on Starfall, and most comments have been lovely, but even I've gotten comments who are being mean about how that they're gay. It's difficult to put yourself out there to tell that kind of story and to know that you are going to get some people who are going to react negatively.
You're leading the way for all the other people out there who hopefully can agree to do something like
I
this.
really hope to see more of it.
Yeah, definitely. If somebody wants to pursue a career in animation or digital art, how would you recommend they go about it?
I don't think there's a way that's necessarily right. I know a lot of artists who are self-taught and they never do a degree and they're fine. They learn through YouTube videos. They're amazing animators. I know people who just started working in a company and picked up on knowledge that way. And then, of course, there's the most traditional way of doing it, which is like go do an animation course, then maybe do a master's degree. I personally think that getting a BA in art or animation is, for me, the best way to go because you get to meet other people who are working on similar things. You get to learn the basics through people who know what they're doing. You get connections to other people in the industry. But doing a degree isn't the only way to get there.
What are some of the biggest mistakes that you notice beginners make?
The biggest mistake I made was expecting everything to be perfect, like first time around. You have this picture in your head of what you want it to look like, and then you draw it and you animate it, and it doesn't look the way it did in your head, and you get disappointed and you quit or you don't continue it. Even with Starfallen, I think mostly I finished it because I had a deadline, because I got to a point where I was halfway through and nothing looked the way I wanted it to look, and I was sick of it. I didn't want to do it anymore. That's a mistake. You need to see things through. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to learn from them. It's not going to look perfect, and that's fine.
The music for the film by Yuri Avi. How did you explain that the soundtrack to the person for them to come up with?
He was so easy to work with. It's like he could see in my head. I sort of sent him some piano pieces that were similar to the feel I wanted to go for. And then, because I also play the piano, I composed like maybe the first parts to show him kind of what I was looking for. And then he took the thing I composed and like completely made it amazing and brilliant. And yeah, I sent him the storyboard so he knew what the timing was, and he composed it to the storyboard.
Now that this is behind you and you're fresh out of school, what are you doing right now in the industry? And
I'm just freelancing. I'm doing graphic design projects mainly because I need to pay bills. But I've actually got a couple of animation gigs on the side, which are really fun to work on. I'm looking into potentially leaving Greece and going to work in a studio because I love the feeling of being part of a team. And I've also been to some pitching events with a friend and collaborator of mine because we're looking to maybe make a few more animated shorts similar to Starfallen. But that nothing is confirmed yet, so I don't know.
Have you considered doing a film like this or even a series on crowdfunding platforms? I know we've assisted a couple, and we're actually working with a film right now on Kickstarter. Yeah, I mean, I think this genre, this is the right time for this type of a genre to be out there, and you may actually be surprised, hopefully pleasantly surprised, that a lot of people may actually back this type of content. So that's something to consider.
We were thinking about it. We just weren't confident that we'd be able to get the funding required because animation takes a long time. We'd need to hire people. It would be very expensive. So we weren't sure crowdfunding would get us there.
Well,
we'll consider it.
A lot of people who are doing the first film on crowdfunding, it's still, majority of it, they still do it themselves. So they usually have one or two partners, and then they're doing it on the side while they're still doing everyday work. Once they get through that one, or they get so much money that they can quit their job, that's when they actually pursue it full time. But that's definitely something to consider. Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for chatting with me and about your film, Starfallen.
It was fun. No, thank you for having me. Like, this has been a really, really fun opportunity for me.
So if anybody wishes to hire Alex Tagali, head on over to their website at tagalialex.com. And there's the cat there saying goodbye.
Hold on, come here. This is my beautiful cat, Jareth. He's a prince. He's lovely.
Those green eyes?
Very green eyes.
I have a cat here too, but she's not around.
You know what? I'm gonna bring her.
I'm gonna bring her, 1 sec.
Please do. Oh my god, so fluffy.
Yeah, this is Mishu.
Oh, hi, Mishu. If you guys go over to my website, it's tagalialex.com. I have like all my social media and everything listed there. So like, even if you have any questions about animation, or even if you want to say, hey, I made this cool thing, check it out, then just drop me a message on any of my social media. Like, I'd be happy to talk to you and see if I can help in any way. Yeah.
And if you haven't checked out our community section, click the button. That's where we're posting all the latest and the greatest and digging out films from our archive for your enjoyment. Thanks for tuning in. Click that like, click that bell, and subscribe. That's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us growing. I'll see you guys tomorrow.